Hello, everyone. Welcome to the chat show where we talk about employment, empathy, and innovation. Employment is the focus area, and two forces, empathy and innovation, how these two forces are truly promoting employment for everyone, inclusive of people on the spectrum and people with other visible and invisible disabilities. Today, my guest is Abigail Erickson Torres. She's the CEO of Bryan's House, an impact agency developing progressive and accessible pathways um, to inclusion to better serve more at-risk children with special needs in eight counties in North Texas. For 30 years, Bryan's House has served children with medical or developmental needs and their families by providing specialized childcare, respite care, and social services. With that, um, Abigail, welcome to the show and thank you for joining us today. Um,
Hi, Nish. Thanks. I'm so pleased to be able to be on your show. What an
thank
honor.
you. Thank you. So, Abigail, just let's start with this. I know you have just amazing a story and journey of doing some amazing work for hundreds and thousands of families in the region which you are serving. Tell us something about your journey and how you are creating really more inclusive future for children with disabilities and autism.
Well, thanks. Yes, Bryan's House has been around for about 33 years. And we were first started to work with, we worked with children who were coming out of hospital into care for CPS that were passing away from HIV and AIDS. Their mothers were in the hospital and there was nowhere to put the children because there was such a stigma back then. But we transitioned beautifully about 10 years ago, and I came on board 6 years ago to Bryan's House to really, I noticed there was a really big gap in service for children with special needs, physical, social, emotional, all those challenges. And so I really started to advocate and work with my board and our teams to try and find pathways to inclusion for these children so that when they are served in our agency, they have this early intervention that is so robust that by the time they enter into employment at the other end of through that journey, they really are able to earn a livable wage and support a family and also help the community. So it's been such a great journey. And, you know, we've got a very unique program in North Texas. We are really fortunate to be able to have an on-site child development center, and in the model of that we have classrooms that are very inclusive, and that means we kind of have a small country hospital inside a classroom where the children are learning and they share joy, but they're also receiving their medical care, so they're getting their breathing treatments or their feeding tubes, they, you know, and this is from the age of 1 to 5. And so along with our case management, which overarches everything that we do at Bryan's House, we're working holistically with the whole family to make sure they rise out of poverty. And that's one thing we I haven't mentioned yet is most of our families we serve, they combined make less than, you know, $25,000 a year. So they are really struggling just with the expense of having a child, one or two or more children with special disabilities or needs. And so we are really fortunate to be able to provide that. It's incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, no, that's a true reflection of how Bryan's House has evolved, as you rightly said, that based on the needs in the community, organization has evolved to offer other services in other areas. And early intervention, I'm also a big a believer of early intervention and early diagnosis. I have also done some work in that area, and we all know that the early diagnosis and early interventions are so important for the individuals to be independent when it comes to the employment. So thank you for sharing your amazing journey. Tell us, I know you are personally connected. What is your connection to disability, and why you think it is so important for your organization?
Well, I think my daughter has hearing loss, and we didn't find out until later on in her life. We did all the testing from infancy, but really it came on very quickly in her early teens. And so I thought, gosh, how is she going to be able to, do the things she needs to do? She has hearing aids. I also have two other members in my family. One is a designated person with, or a little person, as well as a nephew with Downs. And so they in Australia were doing really great programs. I thought, why aren't they doing the programs like that here? Surely America is so progressive. What are the pathways for a mother if she doesn't, have all the resources, let alone is, trying to figure out if she's in transition. And what that means is, Bryan's House also serves women that are running from trauma if they live in an abusive home or they've been trafficked or whatever that is. And some of their children have been injured in the womb or from those situations personally, so they have special needs, the children when they're born, and these women are brave enough. So we want to provide these unhoused, and I like to say unhoused instead of homeless, because homeless, that word to me has a lot of negative connotations, but a woman who is unhoused that has a child with special needs can create a home in her arms for that child as long as they feel safe. But a lot of these families didn't have that access or even know about us. And so that was one of the things that really was a driver for me, because when I first started out in this, working with early childhood leaders here in the city, they had doing great stuff for the 0 to 3 space and that early intervention. But it really wasn't until I came along and said, well, what about kiddos with special health needs? What can we do there? What can we do better? Things started to blossom, and we had so many great partnerships. And, we offer therapies on site at Bryan's House. So the children, when they're in their classroom, they receive the therapy they need every single day. And you can imagine the change that happens when you receive that early intervention, and how that changes the child's trajectory really for life. And so how are we able to continue through in the communities that we serve up to the age of 21? So we have hundreds of families right now that are out in from all different walks of life, all inclusive, all diverse populations, refugees. We have families that are struggling just to, through COVID, survive, and we've been able to help them. And so it's been really rewarding for me personally to be able to provide that intervention and also create plans for the family. So when the child does age out of an independent school district, they have all the tools they need to find a job or make sure they become more independent. But we hopefully in the beginning of their lives have enabled them to be more mobile, can speak or eat or talk and do the things that the doctors told them they couldn't.
Yeah, no, that makes sense with your Australian accent. Now that makes sense about your background and yes, um, and yes, I means organization. So one of the thing which I have learned from you earlier in our earlier conversation, that the work Bryan's House is providing that support to families. Tell us a little bit about that, how this support is provided to the families and how it is really impacting hundreds and thousands of families in your region.
Well, yes, we serve with duplicated services about 2,400 individual family members and children annually. We've probably impacted about 21,000 lives. But it's not just once. When the family comes to us, we look at the whole family. It could be a family of 2, 4, 5, 6. We say, what do you need? Where are you struggling? And so we try to provide, homeless prevention is a big deal. So we get 10 hospital networks that refer to us in the city. They refer the children, ages from infant right up to 21. And so we kind of meet the family where they are and say, what do you need? Provide temporary housing, then get them into homes where they can create a home for their children. If they need a medical bed, if they need, access to a job or training or and further education or financial plan. We do a financial plan with the family. That is in the first 2 weeks in our crisis intervention. Where are you financially? How can we get you out of debt? And create a 38-day plan for them to try and build back credit. Or, if someone's stolen their identity or they need a driver's license because they don't have a residence, or we advocate for them for a healthcare home or legal issues or whatever it is, we provide that case management. And from there, we determine, does the child need to come into our child development center? Do they need family supportive services? Have they got food in the fridge? What do they need? And so we stay with the families for longer. And sure, we could serve more families and the data would come in. Oh, great, numbers. No, we really want to stay with the families longer. So some of our families have been with us up to 2 and 3 years. But what we're doing is creating a solid foundation for that family, that they become taxpayers. You're saving money in the community by not having those folks on different social service programs paid for by the taxpayer. So it makes sense financially as well, not just for the individual, not just for the family, but also for the community, because when we all rise together, when we all are authentic and have those connections and can be, have that just in everyday life. My goal is that we just include people, that we don't have to keep talking about it in the next 10 years. It just happens, that we provide those accessible pathways where you've got a park where someone can play. Mum works in the coffee shop. She's getting healthcare. The kids looked after at the child development center, and they're getting that inclusive experience. But we also teach inclusion to our children with special needs, so they know that they are, they're okay. And so they understand that, yes, they may have some challenges, but it's not a negative thing or a bad thing. So we're teaching our children to respect inclusion as well. And I think everybody at home needs to start at a very early age and talk about, what does that look like? What is inclusion? What is empathy? How can this impact my life? And then that translates beautifully when they're out working when they've graduated from whatever program. Then they may not choose to go to college. They may choose to do something more entrepreneurial. That is a great thing. And that kind of leads me nicely into talking about our luncheon.
Yeah, so I love it. What I heard is very holistic approach where you are truly providing the support by building this and impacting this whole ecosystem, including hospitals and all these other services. And the beautiful thing I which really like about is how you are helping individuals with disability also, about advocacy. Self advocacy is so important. Everybody's talking about that, and that has really impacted with in terms of the awareness in the society. So thank you for some of those great things. But I have a question, that once you train these individuals, once you work with them, once you provide them the support, what is next in terms of how are you helping them find meaningful job or prepare them for work? If you can talk about a little bit about employment related things which we do, which I'm pretty sure you do it amazingly.
Well, we talk about autism. There's a lot of programs right now where we're trying to have in our inclusive classroom. And for example, one classroom, we have 4 children that are in all different levels on the spectrum. And I know that for parents that have children with autism, it's a real challenge to figure out, what the child's special challenges are individually and how they fit within a classroom. And so how are they going to be able to find employment if they're going to run out of the classroom, at an early age? What does that look like in the future? And so children with Asperger's or children that are on the spectrum, there's now these unique programs that are coming out through amazing corporations like Ernst & Young, Bank of America, we have lots of Fortune 50 companies here in Dallas. And so partnering with these guys to say, look, we have children that we've put through our inclusive path, early intervention, and then we move into, making sure that when they transition into an independent school district, they have all the tools they need to be able to, get where they need to be. And especially if they're on the spectrum, some of those folks are really, really intelligent. Everybody's intelligent, but they have a really high IQ and it seems to adapt beautifully to neuroscience or something to do with computers because they're so focused. And so Ernst & Young has 1,000 fabulous program. And Hiran Shukla, who's going to be talking at our luncheon, which we can get to in a minute, Hiran Shukla and 8 other panelists we have on our luncheon, they all, Microsoft is another great company that's working with us, AT&T. These guys really practice what they preach. So they're opening up special employment facilities where they have a team of folks that are a little bit on the spectrum, or they have, physical challenges, or, hearing loss or vision loss, whatever it is. They are really working to provide opportunities for them at their companies. And I think it has to start there, making sure they know what opportunities are out there. So that's why I love your company. You're really connecting the employer to the employee, through that empathetic and authentic connection, Nish. I think it's fantastic what you're doing, and matching those folks using a platform that's really, it's so accessible. And making sure that those companies, and it could be a small company, it doesn't have to be, a corporation. And so we explore what a family member can do. So when they're aging out at 21, we kind of come up with a plan, and that may look like, a family member can live independently and still go to work with Down syndrome. They could work at a grocery store like Tom Thumb, or work at, Trader Joe's, or whatever it is. We need to embrace that and have that opportunity, that platform for companies to really engage and talk to folks like you and me about what that looks like. What can that employment be? Bank of America in Dallas has a whole floor of folks, about 20 people that help with the mailings of all of their packets and whatever that is. And they take great pride, the people that work there, in the work they're doing, because they are valued. Mm-hmm. They are valued. Happy Homemade is an ice cream nonprofit that they have a wonderful where all the folks there have Downs or have challenges. They are working and they're making a great living, and they're advocating for folks. And so all the money from Howdy Homemade, that nonprofit, also really going back into the community. And when we're all included, we all rise together. And so that's just some of the things, in my opinion, I think would be helpful. And I just recently was asked by the North Texas Disability Chamber to form a very special committee that I'm bringing together a group of people that are, really experts in the area of early childhood disabilities, as well as early childhood mental health and early childhood poverty alleviation. And we are going to be reporting a committee, the first of its kind, the Early Childhood Committee on Disabilities within the chamber, and that goes to our governor. The information we're providing, we can share events and data and really start to have those bigger conversations. And so I'm really proud to be the chair of that, and also an advisory board member for the North Texas Disabilities Chamber. So, bringing in great people from all over the state and hopefully the nation, just having those conversations, I think that's so important. And I think, working, diversity and inclusion is such a hot marketing expression now. I really want companies to, don't just use that as a marketing tool, really embrace it in your HR departments. Do you have, 4 or 5 jobs that you can offer a person that has challenges? Are you employing that group of people? I think having that be a part of a core value in a company, not just checking off the box. I think that's really how we all, can do much better and have that empathy and understanding. And actually, so one of the things, if you work with people with challenges, I guarantee you're going to feel good every single day, because they bring such joy to your life. Just all the things they've overcome. It's just very personally rewarding.
That's my personal experience, and I've been experiencing that truly for last 15 years, every single day. And one of the things which you mentioned about collaborations, right? What you are doing is collaborating and bringing in all different stakeholders, including leaders from the state government, and you are having that conversation in a collaborative way. And one of the other things which you mentioned, that diversity and inclusion is a hot topic. In fact, I was just attending one of the session at Disability in Conference, and somebody shared these statistics that out of 100 companies talking about disability inclusion, only 4 companies are working. Diversity inclusion. only 4 companies are really doing disability inclusion related programs in a serious way. So that's how the statistics shows that disability inclusion has been kind of not given enough attention. But what we have experienced at Rangam and Sourceable is now things are changing. Companies are paying attention, because I mentioned this to you earlier, that I truly have seen and experienced that every one of us are connected to someone with disability. And so we all have good intentions, almost all. It's just a matter of how we all collaborate together.
And I think it's, around what we're talking about, that authentic connection, providing those pathways to folks. And it's really kind of simple. I mean, if you the early intervention gives the family what they need. They're able to transition into into great school districts where they embrace all of that and encourage. But also, we still case manage those families. So when they are transitioning out at 21, and sometimes our children do pass from their diagnosis, Niche. We know that. Some of our kiddos, especially with very rare diseases, because we serve about 146 different diagnoses at Bryan's house, and on our annual report has all the list of the diagnoses, including 8 very rare diseases in the world. We're working with those children and figuring out what they need. And, sometimes they do pass, and that's, but they've had a joyful life with us. And that is so rewarding too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I would love to continue the conversation and understand how we can participate, contribute. We will reach out to you. But I really love the way how you are really connecting people. And through your leadership, Bryan's house is doing some
Oh,
amazing work,
yes.
impacting so many people. And I can see, I can hear that passion in your voice. Now, one thing you mentioned, and when we talk about, as you know, about empathy, you mentioned few times. Tell us why empathy is so important with the work we do every day in the area of disability inclusion and working with people with disabilities.
Sure. I think having emotional intelligence around people is really important. I think if you've never done a course about emotional intelligence, it's something, some people just have it, and some things you can learn about it. I was lucky enough to participate in a sponsored, I did an education program at Yale University with Professor Emma Sapala. And I did a 10-week course about emotional intelligence, and I found out that I was doing okay, but it was just great to connect. And having that empathy, I think, is so important, because you can, it makes you graceful in the fact that you're so blessed if you are don't have any, everybody has challenges. I'm not saying that, but if it's physical, or if it's that emotional stress or the trauma that some children have been witness to some horrific things in their lives that they've seen, and that impacts them mentally and physically, as well as moms and the dads too. We have a lot of single dads that we serve. It's a challenge. We've worked around that. So I think just putting yourself in someone else's shoes for a while and really speaking about that, and engaging more about that as an HR professional or as someone who's hiring, putting yourself in that person's shoes and really just taking a breath and kind of saying, okay, I'm really focusing on what you're saying and listening to that and having that empathy. I think that'll make you a better person. I also think it'll improve the community. And, we're all rushing around so much these days that just slowing down a little bit, I think, and working with families, or really learning more about what it is to be empathetic, you will have such a great life. You will just be embraced, and you will embrace others, and it really enriches your life. I get emotional about it because, I just see so many people struggling right now. And mental health is a big thing. It's okay to say you're not doing okay. I just really feel that, if you really, like, it's Friday right now, what are you doing today? You're running around trying to get everything done before the weekend. Just take a minute just to think about, how lucky you are that you're alive. We lost so many folks from COVID, and just having that empathy for people who are struggling. And so, people say don't give to panhandlers. I always give $1 if I can, because you just don't know their backstory. They could be veterans. They could be, this may be living with trauma. You just don't know. So don't be a judgy wudgy. Have that empathy.
So right, so true, and that's just as we in our world, I call this, how do we innovate through empathy, right? So taking the empathetic approach, and in the area of what we do, and also Brian's house work is also, it's a lot of creative way of helping someone. And you mentioned that when you see that joy on the person with disability whom we are working with, it's a great reward. And I have personally experienced that, and that's how I got connected. And that empathetic approach when we are working with these individuals, it's just amazing. It's not only just right thing to do, but it's a good thing for ourselves also, and as you rightly said, for the organization also, it's a great thing. Before we have a few minutes left, so before we conclude, I would like to ask you if you can share an inspiring story, maybe connected to empathy or something, which I'm pretty sure you will have tons and tons
I've
of
got so many
amazing.
stories. Oh my gosh. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of Penny. Penny came
Okay.
to Brian's house when she was 2 years old, and she could not move from anywhere from that head, from that neck down. And she had very limited use in her torso, but she couldn't move her arms or her legs that were shortened. And so we had her in the classroom, and she was like an ingenue, this young lady. She was so bright, and she'd never had the chance to be in an inclusive room with other
Mm.
children. And, she wasn't really mobile. And so she figured it out we figured it out with her, how she could do the activities and things like that. She used a mouth to play with the dolls, and we would include her in all these different things. And she was just so bright. And so one day we're able to find her this wheelchair that she could use. There's like a bar around her head, and she could push her head and she could go forward or back or left or right. And so we brought that chair to her, and we started training her with the therapist in the hallway, because it has this long way to go, so she could drive it this way and that. And we thought, oh, we'll just gingerly put her in there. And so we did. And after literally about 40 seconds of instruction on how to use the head thing, she figured it out, and she whipped around, and she was gone down the hallway in her own chair. That
Oh, wow.
she found personal independence in her physical life for the very first time. She said, I want to go this way, I'm going to go that way. So off she went, and we were running down the hallway. Wait, Penny, wait. It was so beautiful. Her mother cried, I cried, everybody was crying. And from there she just blossomed, because her brain synapses were firing, and she was able to do what she needed to do. And so now she's in a typically developing classroom in another school, and she's doing great.
Amazing story of independence, and how independence is really impacting their mental health also. Just imagine how
Yep.
amazing experience she must be going through when she figured out. And wow, so nice, so nice. I really enjoyed this conversation, Abigail. I wish I could have continued, but keeping the time constraint in mind, I would like to say thank you again. Thank you for your time here. Thank you for doing some amazing empathy driven innovative work at Brian's house, and impacting hundreds and thousands of families. We will continue this conversation, and again, thank you.